Hello there. So I've decided to give the challenge of trying to predict the Scottish Premiership. Now, people love to say the Scottish Premiership is the easiest league to predict in the world because you know who's going to win it. That may be the case, but from third down to 12 is always a challenge to predict. I did horribly last year. I was going to film it, but I'm so glad I didn't. I had Dundee United all the way down 10th. They went on to finish 4th. So instead, what I've decided to do is just record it the day, and if it's crap come the end of the season, he's gonna laugh at me in the comments. Without any further ado, I'm gonna do the bottom two. So finishing at bottom, I've went with Dundee. It's a hard one, right? Because Simon Murray is a very, very good player, but they've lost like Lyle Cameron. Dundee's lost a lot of players, coupled with bringing in Stephen Presley, a very uninspiring choice. Now, Fast Eddie, working at Brentford, I believe, before this. Even still, he's not a good manager for Dundee. He's not. Who knows? Maybe he's learned a lot from working at Brentford, but to me, I feel like a poor managerial appointment coupled with a lot of departures is going to be Dundee are finishing bottom. I don't know when David Breslow gets sacked. Potentially Christmas time, potentially January. Obviously, Dundee's trying to build a new stadium. However, who knows what's happening with that? Because this has been going on for a while now. Obviously, that's going to cost a lot of money. So they may be reluctant to go and sack Stephen Presley. All in all, it's going to be a very, very tough season for Dundee. They've started off not too bad. They got a draw at Rangers. Um, was never Pelly in the end for Rangers, so they're very hard done by, and they played very well. But games against Hibs and Dundee United have shown that they've just given nothing. Anyway, in 11th, I've gone with Livy. This one might swap, I don't know. Start of the season not too bad. Really unfortunate to lose to Hearts. And they went and beat Falkirk, which I was really not expecting. Liverpool just like the Stoke, like early 2010s. Just a place you don't want to go and play away, and they're going to be doing bits at home. However, I feel like I will get to who I've got 10th. I feel like teams above them's got a bit more. I think they'll go into playoffs. It depends on who they get in the playoffs, you know. As for Liverpool, again, going to be a tough place to go this year, and they'll they'll make it teams, but away I think they'll probably struggle. Again, with who I've got 10th, it could swap with them, but I'm just edging them slightly higher. Right, now 7th, 10th, I'm going to be completely honest, this can completely change. From 11th can change, and from 9th to maybe 6th can change. Anyway, I'll go with who I've got 10th. It's Falkirk. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Falkirk. As a Race Rovers fan, you might be able to guess why. But they've had some decent signings. Scott Bain, I think, brings a lot of leadership. Brian Graham, whilst he's very old, I don't think he'll be able to compete at Premier level. He obviously has got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, which I think will be useful. And Falkirk had a good team in the Championship, but anyway, like Calvin Miller and Caelan Adams. I know a Falkirk fan. They love to talk about how good Caelan Adams is. Next Scottish right back. Remember last season they told me Caelan Adams would be in the World Cup squad. I very much doubt that, but that's besides the point. I might swap it with Olivia, I don't know. Falkirk start the season. They had got off to a rough start. They got the first win yesterday. Well, I'm recording on deadline day, so it'll be the Sunday against it was the Sunday against Aberdeen. So I think they'll start off strong. I think they'll have a mid-season wobble, but ultimately I think they'll stay up in about 10th. But there won't be much separating them and Livy. I could see it maybe going even to the final day. Anyway, in 9th, and this one I have swapped around so much because at one point I had them seventh, was Kelly. Obviously, losing Derek McInnes was a bit of a blow. Stuart Kettlewell's not a bad manager. The problem I have with Kelly is just that compared to teams above them, that's when they might, struggle. They don't think they've won a game this season yet. I think they've drawn all their games. So is Rangers, funnily enough. Bruce Anderson's a good striker. Obviously, they lost Daniel Armstrong. I know he wasn't as good last season, but he could still be a good player for them. I don't really have much to say on Kelly, just because again, my whole reason I put them ninth is I believe the teams ahead of them have got a wee bit more. So it's gonna be tough for you. It's say who knows? Again, I can see them coming seventh, but I'll show you who I've got seventh and eighth, and maybe you'll start to understand why. I've got eighth Dundee United and seventh Aberdeen. Aberdeen had sixth at one point. Dundee I've had consistently about eighth. So I'll start with Dundee United. I think they're going to fall off this season. Um, which seems crazy because they had a really good season last season and they didn't even get to Europe, which is part of the reason why I think Aberdeen's also going to fall off. But one of the things that's really hurt Dundee United this season is the loss of Sam Dalby. He was brilliant for them last season, and obviously they went and replaced him, but it's going to be very, very hard to replace Sam Dalby. I believe he went to Bolton, I would say. This prediction was Dundee United. So I thought they'd maybe get to the Conference League. They went and obviously drew Rapid Vienna. They gave them a fight, but ultimately got knocked out. Dundee United are one of the hardest teams to predict. Because I remember they finished fourth. Now to be fair, they did have a different manager. And then it was the season before they went down, they finished fourth, and then they went on a horrific run and got relegated. I'm going to say something controversial. I don't rate Jim Goodwin. I really don't. Um, sure he did a good job at St Mirren. Okay, I'm very biased on this. I can't deny this. But that season, Dundee United won the championship. I thought they played some very crap football, and if Rafe were complete bottle jobs like we are, we would have won the league. Because Dundee United, in my opinion, played crap. We got 7 points off that season. It could have easily been nine. If it was it for something so stupid, but you know. So I've got a bit biased against Dundee United. In saying that, they do have a good team, but I'll get to who I've got sixth in a minute. I think they've made a really good transfer who's sixth, and that's why I've put Aberdeen seventh. So Aberdeen's had a poor start to the season. They've not even I don't think they've got a win yet, and it's funny, because Aberdeen were amazing last season for the first half, and they were sitting in second, and people were talking to them about them potentially breaking the old firm. I don't think that's happening now. Jimmy, I can't even pronounce his last name. Jimmy Femmler. Again, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. His magic's gone, and now they've got Conference League. Now they've not got the worst draw in the world. There's some tough teams in there. Shakhtar is going to give them. It's going to be a tough game. Strasbourg. I believe they've got AK Athens as well. So obviously they've got a tough draw. But for me, I think they'll do alright. I think they've got no as well. That's a winnable game. I think they'll get about maybe somewhere between 7 and 9 points. Maybe squeak into the playoffs for the Conference League. Who knows? That also, if they do that, that will help prove my point about them finishing seventh because we're going to take a step back between Europe. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jimmy Femlin gone. Aberdeen realistically want to be up in front of and the drop off they had last season as well is something which is playing in my mind of maybe that's where they'll um, finish there because they realistically should be finishing at least third, but they dropped off. Something like 13 games they went without a win. It was crazy. So yeah, that's my bit of my reasoning. You know what? But it's tough because when I get to sec, I'll show you. Because at one point I actually had the team in sec. So sixth, I'm gonna go with Motherwell. I say a few weeks back, and I would have said they would have finished about ninth. Now I'm putting them above Dundee United and Aberdeen. Dundee United and Aberdeen. I well, a couple of factors. First things first, that second half performance against Rangers, they had a much better XG. I know XG doesn't mean much, but they were unlucky not to win it. You know, they also went through. They did bottle, lead against Hearts, which isn't great, but still to play the way they did against Hearts, particularly that first half. Considering how well Hearts have been as well this season, that is some feat. They've lost Lennon Miller, which they've went out and replaced them not bad, but one transfer they made after this. When I saw this, this is why I've shoved Motherwell all the way up in sixth. They went and signed Regan Charles Cook. Now, he played amazingly for Ross County. If he can recapture that magic, Motherwell are going to have an amazing season, and who knows, they may even get fifth. But I cannot understate how much a loss Liam Miller is, and whilst they've started the season off well, they could easily drop off. So it's going to be tight between ninth and sixth, but yeah. And in fifth, I went with St Mirren. Rate Stephen Robinson. I think he's done a brilliant job. And the thing is, they've been consistently building for the last couple of seasons anyway. St Mirren. They can also, in theory, drop down to eighth as well. But compared to like say Aberdeen, who's got European football, and like I did say, I may not rate Jim Goodwin, but he has done a decent job at Dundee United. I did do a good job at St Mirren, even if like Stephen Robinson's did a better job. The thing about Dundee United and Jim Goodwin is I believe his contract's up at the end of the season. Clubs might try and poach him. Who knows? Clubs might try and poach Stephen Robinson. Stephen Robinson could maybe get poached by someone. Don't get me like an Aberdeen, maybe someone down south. Um, like I don't know, maybe a QPR could come in for him, or so maybe like bottom half championship or like a Barnsley. But obviously, St Mirren did a good job. I don't think they've really lost anyone too major, so it's just a building on last season. They were very very unlucky not to break the top four, and I'm just going to explain that why because this one I have tossed and turned over, and that's because it is really hard to distinguish these two teams at the minute. But I've just gave it to Hearts. I think Hearts have overall probably the better squad and a better manager. And saying that, Hibs have Kieran Bowie. He is a brilliant player for Hibs. I'm easily expecting him to maybe get something like potentially even 20 goals this season. I know it. And obviously Hibs have a very good team. I think Shanklin's going to come back to his best though. And obviously people like James Wilson at Hearts, Alan Forrest, Blair Spittle, um, are you've got that going for Hearts. And Derek McKess is such a top manager. It was a real big coup to get him away for Kelly. And when it comes to like maybe a David Gray, he's maybe not as experienced. I think that's maybe what edged it slightly. I also forgot Hearts have Xander Clark. You know, they also have Finlay Pollock, but he's not playing, so could we please get him back? He was brilliant for us last season. I really hope he does break into the Hearts team this season. He was absolutely amazing at Rafe last year, and I think Hearts just got a wee bit more in terms of going and finishing third. They've got they've not got European football to worry about either, so they've not had the effect of that. And and you can see that by the fact that they've started the season so strongly. You'll come 3-0 down from Motherwell. It's gonna be a very interesting game when Rangers face Hearts. I remember last year actually people were I saw some predictions saying Hearts could finish second, and there'll probably some people will say that this year, but that's obviously not going to happen. The gap between Rangers and Hearts is massive. And one thing I have to also say is now they might do something today that surprises me, but because I wouldn't be surprised by this. The fact that Tony Bloom has went and invested in Hearts is a massive, massive thing. You know, obviously if you look at Brighton where they are, you know, constant top 10 finishes, they've had European runs, and now you look at Union Saint Gallen, who's where Brighton's teams that they send a lot of their own players to. If Brighton starts sending a lot of players to Hearts, you know, if you look at the sort of players Brighton have sold, like the Caicedo, like the Cucurella, you know, these hidden gems that they've went and signed. And obviously, the thing about Brighton as well is, obviously they've got the hidden gems, but then they send them on loan. You know, that will be in the Scottish League. I've always said this is one of the best places to send players on loan because it's a different type of game. You know, so it's like for example, I'm pretty sure Sean Longstaff went and played for Kilmarnock, which is a crazy fact. You know, so it's obviously the if Brighton start loaning players come January to Hearts, that'll give them an extra, 10%, and that's why I think they just got to edge it for ahead of Hibs. Now, down to the top two. I feel like this is obvious, but there's gonna be a bit more to it. So there's a couple of factors playing into this. Obviously, Celtic started the season pretty well. Rangers, well, I think there's a 5 point gap between them, and you know the problem for Rangers is a manager, and I'm pals with some Rangers fans. I remember having a conversation after the Club Brugge game, and it was basically saying the players are good, but the management's really what's letting them down. That's true. Now, I don't buy this, but I've seen rumours linking Jose Mourinho to the job if Martin was to get sacked. The day Jose Mourinho comes to Scottish football, it'll be hilarious. He was sitting and complaining about VAR. Well, actually, he's the Rangers manager. Probably not. But the day he goes to like the Bayview, he goes to Tannadice, goes to Stark Park, goes to East End Park, just a different random Scottish stadiums. That'll be very funny. The thing is, though, I can see him maybe going to Celtic. I know some Celtic fans wouldn't accept him, but Rodgers is off at the end of the season. If he doesn't go and take the Nottingham Forest job, when Snow sacked, and that's why he's only signing people, and that Rangers absolute pants. So this whole sack the board, I don't get. Like he's spend more money than Rafe Rovers could in a lifetime. You know, and I get it's frustrating. It must be frustrating for Rodgers. You know, Rangers are buying all these players, but it's not pants. You know, he's just selling Adam Baida for 7 mil. I don't know how he's getting 7 million for him. But and you've lost Nicholas Green. Yes, your business has to be great, but just Celtic, you're still at least a mile or two ahead of Rangers in terms of quality. You know, you've got probably you've got the best manager in the league. A manager could probably easily get into the a top seven club in the Prem. You know, he Rodgers could one day realistically become the Newcastle manager. I wouldn't really sit and complain about it because he's a good manager. But and that's the difference between Celtic and Rangers at the minute is definitely management. You know, if I was Rangers, obviously I don't think Mourinho will come. I'd look at someone like Sean Dyche if he's going to go to West Ham. Steve Cooper, I think Steve Cooper's a top club manager. Even a Rafa, you know, I remember when he was at Newcastle, he really built a connection with the fans, and that would be something Rangers fans would appreciate. Honestly, if I was them, I would look at Steve Cooper though, instead of. Russell Martin. As for Celtic, similar boat, but I hope they don't go get Ange. And we'll see the same managers coming in the league. What's your stop once Derek McInnes leaves Hearts? Robbie Nielsen coming back, you know? You need to get new managers in. And Gerrard's not the answer. He's went and failed in Saudi, he's went and failed at Villa since leaving Rangers. You know, it's funny, all the Rangers managers, post Rangers, have went and done horrific jobs, and they're either unemployed or backroom staff. In a similar vein, whilst Ange did an incredible job at Spurs, I think he done really poor in the league. Let's call it space spade, but I think he done an incredible job in terms of winning the Europa League and winning silverware. He should be coming back to Celtic. Ideally, I'd love him as Scotland manager, but I don't think it'll happen. So Celtic could look at someone like a maybe we could get a Rafa, or even I think Jose Mourinho might be more attracted to a Celtic job than Rangers. I would say Steve Cooper though, just because generally the manager I really rate highly. Maybe for Graham Potter. I know that sounds crazy because he's been so poor at West Ham, but he's a decent manager. He brings youth players through, which is what something I was saying to. It's probably actually make a better target for Rangers because I was remember saying to a Rangers pal how easy to actually bring some youth players through. Celtic also do it as well, but I feel like it's a lot worse at Rangers. They need to start doing it, of course, with Finlay Curtis. But ultimately, there's too big a gap between Rangers and Celtic that I can't put Rangers first. And to be honest, it'll be a lot closer between Hearts and Rangers than it is Celtic and Rangers. 'Cause Rangers have been that poor this season. I don't see Martin leaving until about Christmas time. If he's gone in October, I'd be very surprised. I think the boys going to try and back him, but he's not playing well. And the thing is, there's games I can see him losing. I could maybe see him losing to Hearts. I have a funny feeling, and it sounds crazy, but Falkirk are away. 1-0 Falkirk. Come back to this video and watch Rangers have smacked them like 7-0, but clicks for Martin, fair enough, but it's not clicked. They've not won a game in the league, and they got embarrassed in Europe again. So I have to put Celtic first. Anyway, hope you enjoy the video. I'm going to be hopefully making a fairly predictions video after deadline day, and I've got a couple of projects coming up, so I'm looking really forward to making. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.